Hello, and welcome back to Let's Get Lit. In today's episode, we're going to be going over the Wife of Bath's tale from the Canterbury Tales. Are you ready to hear about a story with knights, old women, and what women want the most in life? Then, join me, and let's see exactly what happens in the Wife of Bath's tale. Shall we? The Wife of Bath starts her prologue telling the company that she has had 5 husbands since the age of 12. She goes on to say that Christ only went to one wedding and that it was at Cana in Galilee. She goes on to tell the group that it is not a sin that she's been married 5 times, and in fact, she even references Solomon and Abraham from the Bible, saying they both had many wives at one point. She also says that she will not be chaste for long and that it is sure to pass that some Christian men will come in and marry her. She also says that nowhere in the Bible does it forbid marriage. She then goes on to talk about virginity and how if virginity was to be held at such a high standard, then there would be no more children that come afterwards to keep that virginity upheld. She says that she believes it is a right for every married man and woman to have their go. She says that the only thing she can think about living a virgin life is from the Apostle Paul, but she believes he's talking about when a man and wife are unwedded. She also goes on to state that even a lord of a household doesn't have every single plate made from gold. He has some that are made from wood or other materials that serve him quite well for his everyday use. She then goes on to say that if genitals were created by God for Adam and Eve and for generations to come, and that God wanted Adam and Eve to multiply, then sex isn't such a bad thing. She also says that many scholars have wrote that a man should pay his debt unto his wife, which she takes it to mean that every marriage should be consummated, and that it is a husband's duty to make sure his wife is pleased. At this point, the partner interrupts her saying that he thought about getting married this year, but from what she's saying, he thinks he's going to stay away from it for just a little while longer. She goes on to tell the group that she's been married 5 times, 3 of which have been really good men, and 2 have been not so good men. She also says that once a woman is wedded, all of the land and everything the man owns is also hers. So there is no need for women to try and play coy because they're now part of a union. She says that once a woman is married, they can now enjoy each other's company for fun and for sport. She also says that sometimes there's a double standard in relationships. If a woman wants to go to a friend's house who's known as a gossip or spending the time in public areas, it's considered a bad thing. The husband is known to chastise or punish the wife for this. However, when a man stays out all night with his friends, drinking whatever and comes home as drunk as a mouse, the wives shouldn't bat an eye. She tells the group that the first 3 husbands are quite similar. They were all good men, and even if they did something wrong, it wasn't long before they were begging her forgiveness. She was able to use sex and their lust as a way against them. That way, if they had done anything bad, she'd be able to hold it up to them, and once they confessed and made up, then she would give in to their lusty ways. She also always told her husbands that one of the 2 parties involved in a marriage should be happy, as since women are a little harder to please and make happy, the men should learn how to take this trait on. She then goes on to talk about her 4th husband. She tells the crowd that the 4th husband she had was a mighty reveler, and that he kept a wench and was very fond of her. She also says that though she knew this, and she knew that she wasn't young anymore and had her looks to rely on, she still had her ways of keeping him. She also says that she thought she was his earthly purgatory because she did so many things to him. She hopes now his soul can finally rest in peace. She said he passed away when she was coming back home from Palestine, that they had a nice burial, and that now is comfortable in his coffin. She then goes on to talk about her 5th husband, and that his name was Jenkins. He was a student at Oxford town and came to stay with her gossip named Allison. She talks about how one day in Lent, her husband came up to London for the entire period, and she would go over to her gossip's house and talk for hours and hours. This is where she ended up meeting him. She also tells the group that she married her 5th husband not for wealth or gain, but for true love itself. She says that during the times of Lent, she'd be over at her friend's house, and the 3 of them would go walking in the fields, talking, having a good time. And after a while, she tells Jenkins that if she were ever to be single again, that he should be her next husband. She jumps back to when her 4th husband had passed away and they were burying him, and she couldn't keep her eyes off of Jenkins. She remarks how he was only 20 years old and that she was 40, but she didn't care. She had to have him either way. She goes on to say that not even a month after her 4th husband has passed away, her and Jenkins are married. She says that she gave him everything that she had acquired up to that point, land and all. She goes on to tell the group that with her 5th husband, he loved to read in all of his free time, especially from a book about women and all of their evil deeds and how they have betrayed their husbands. One night, as they were sitting by the fire, he decides to read aloud from this book. She gets very upset, and she rips 3 pages from this book, and then she hits him so hard that he falls back into the fire. He then jumps jumps up from the fire and hits her with his fist at full strength, which causes her to fly backwards onto the floor. While on the floor, she pretends to be dead, and when he bends over to get a good look, she hits him again in the face, and then she pretends to fall back down. He then wills everything back to her and hopes that she might live again. Then she goes on to mention that after this incident, both her and her husband live happily until he dies. After the wife of Bath tells this, the friar then butts in and asks if she will eventually get on to telling her story already. The summoner tries to defend the wife of Bath and tells the friar to promptly shut up. The host agrees and tells the wife of Bath she may proceed with her story. The wife of Bath's tale starts out in the time of King Arthur, and how there was a knight who was very lusty and gay. He saw a fair maiden who was all by herself, and he took advantage of her, taking away her maidenhood. Due to this violation, he was sentenced to King Arthur and to be punished. He was going to be beheaded, but the queen asked if she may take on the punishment for this knight. The king agrees, and the knight goes with the queen. She asks the knight, "What is one thing all women covet most?" She says to make sure that he answers correctly, or else he will not be able to save his neck from the iron. She says that if he does not know, then he should leave, and he will have 1 year and 1 day to bring her back a satisfactory answer. The knight says he doesn't know, and so she gives him this time frame to get a suitable answer. He soon leaves the castle and takes the entire year talking to a variety of women, trying to find out what women most covet. The full year is almost over, and he still has not found a suitable answer for the queen. As he's making his way home along the road, off to the side he sees 24 women in the distance dancing. So he decides to go to them and see if he can possibly get an answer from them. However, by the time he reaches them, everyone has disappeared except for one old woman. She asks him what's the matter, and he tells her what's going on. She says that if he will do anything she requests, she will give him the perfect answer for the queen. He agrees, and he goes back to the castle on the day he's supposed to with this older woman. The queen is sitting in judgment, and inside the room there are many wives and different women all gathered together to hear what this knight has to say. The knight responds to the queen that women desire to have the sovereignty over their husbands, or of such as love them and ever live in mastery above them. When all the women hear this, they could not help but agree that this was the correct answer. After the knight says this, the old woman who helped the knight quickly comes up and tells everyone that she has coached the knight on this answer. She also tells everyone, including the queen, that he promised her anything that she desired if she were to give him the right answer. She then tells the knight that what she desires most is to be his wife. At first, he tries to back out of this and tries to make the point that she is too old and too ugly, etc., etc. However, he soon realized that he cannot go back on his word, and he ends up marrying this old woman. As the old woman is laying in bed waiting for her new husband to come in, he's trying to stall as long as he can from trying to see her. When he finally does come to bed, he acts very cold and very harsh towards her, and she asks, is this how all knights are supposed to be in bed towards their wife? He finally gives in and tells her that due to her age and her looks and her filthy ways, he cannot possibly be in love with her. She goes on to say that though she is poor and old, there are actually some of the best things to have in life, because then you can have a true loving life, one that closely resembles the Christian way. Finally, she asks him which would he choose for her. She can either stay old and ugly but be a very faithful wife, or she could become young and beautiful, but he would have to take a chance at her being unfaithful. In the end, he essentially says that all of the sovereignty that he had was given to her, and that it was her own free choice to make. She tells him that she will choose both. She will turn into a young, beautiful woman, but also stay faithful to him for the rest of their lives. She does this because he freely lets her choose what she truly wants. He then kisses her, and soon she turned into a beautiful young woman. They end up spending the rest of their lives happily together, wedded to one another. This is where the wife of Bath's tale ends. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, stay lit.